All right, folks. John Henning here with the Franchise Radio Show. Visit us online at franchiseradioshow.com. Dan Hayes, CEO and founder of 100 Acre Consulting. Now, Dan is a certified franchise consultant and has agreed today to spend some time with us and talk about franchising. Thank you so much, Dan.
Thank you, John. I appreciate the invite.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Now, before we jump into the business stuff, anybody that's ever listened to one of my podcasts or shows knows that I'm a big proponent of people doing business with people. So I'd love to ask you a little bit about yourself. So I always jokingly say, without using the word franchise, tell us about Dan Hayes.
Okay. Well, I spent almost 30 years running nonprofits. My whole mantra in life is, if I can make people feel good about where they live, they'll get involved with where they live. And then once they're involved with where they live, you really start building community. And so that's sort of my focus. I'm still doing those sort of things. I actually, this past weekend, was just certified in a fall prevention Tai Chi counselor. So I'm going to be working with the area of senior aging and trying to help people keep their balance. It's all about, volunteering and doing what you can. But yeah, that's kind of me.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. I appreciate that. Now, before we get into all the different questions that we talked about here, I want to find out, make sure our listeners understand, what is it that you do as a certified franchise consultant? Tell us, just kind of give us the brief overview, high level. What is it that you do on a daily and weekly basis when you're working with folks?
I help people determine whether or not a franchise business is going to actually be able to help them attain their goals, financial, lifestyle. I don't approach this industry as most of my peers. It's such a dynamic industry. These businesses are so well put together that, as long as you follow what they tell you to do, you're going to be successful. So, my whole thing is, ask not what the business does, but what the business is going to do for you. What kind of lifestyle are you looking to get out of a business? I ask my clients things like, do you like to go to dinner once a month? Do you want to go to dinner once a week? Do you want to go to dinner 4 times a year in Europe? What is it you want to do? And then, once I get an understanding of the kind of lifestyle that they're looking for, we start talking about what sort of money they need or they're looking to attain from this business, whether they're going to transition into it or they just want it in their, as a side hustle, so to speak, or something along those lines. And, and then when we've got all that together, then I start talking about, okay, so, what are you looking to spend? How much are you looking to finance? What is all of this worth to you to get there? That's it.
Dan, that's a really unique approach, and I appreciate you for explaining that, because folks, pay attention here as we're listening to this. I just want to recap what Dan just said. So he's not just helping people find franchises. You're helping them find something that fits what they're looking for, fits their lifestyle, fits their financial goals. Of course, there has to be that component of it, but where you started was unique. I talked to a lot of folks, and the way you explained it is you're looking to find out, what are they looking for? What makes them go? What motivates them? What's important to them? Those types of things. And you will work with them through all the other stuff. But what's interesting that I think I really want folks to pay attention to is what you said in the very beginning of that. Was that the gist of what I heard?
Yes. As I said, the franchise industry is so dynamic. These things, whether, if you're looking to make $250,000 a year, and what's the difference whether it's, having people walk pets and take care of them, or you're fixing somebody's kneecap? You're not literally doing any of that.
Right.
You just own the business that is occurring in. And, in the franchise industry, I would say probably 60 to 70% of people who own franchises sell them after 7 or 8 years anyway. It's a transition thing. My wife teaches graduate classes at Syracuse University, and I used to go up and take, when we lived in New York, and I would take, classes for free. Wish I could have got my daughters to go to Syracuse University, but anyway, I took an entrepreneurial course once, and it was a boot camp, and I would say one weekend was basically spent on, flipping franchises. That's being taught in Syracuse University School of Business.
Right.
You know, and so, it's the industry is just so incredible nowadays.
One of the things that I hear a lot of folks talking about in the circles that I travel in franchising is that, as long as it fits the goals of what someone wants to do every day, of course, that's important. Look at franchising as being a vehicle to get you from where you are to where you want to be, right? The vehicle.
Correct. Yeah,
Vehicle
exactly.
is that business. I love what you said. It doesn't matter if I'm, working with pets or working with seniors or whatever it is. If
Correct.
it fits what I'm doing every day, if that lifestyle and freedom, flexibility, and then it achieves those goals that we discussed. So you're going to walk them through all of that, kind of that exploration, and then you're going to talk with them in the process of different franchise models, right?
Yes. Yeah. Then, I've got a large portfolio. There's 32 different industries I work within, so, I can then say, okay, well, look, here's a pet one, here's a senior care, here's something, in food. If you've got if my client has a passion, I'm not going to, go into lifestyle with them. I'm going to talk to them about their passion. But, if they're coming to me saying, okay, talk to me about a franchise and tell me something more than it's a football team, it's, I can tell them what this industry is doing, where this industry is going, how it's going. I'm going to guess in 5 to 10 years from now, 60% or more of the franchises in America are probably not going to let their owners even do anything other than just be the owner and maybe come up with money for marketing. Yeah, you can advertise, we'll take care of it, because nobody can run it better than them anyway, the franchise company. And, it's, anyway, that's kind of the way I see this industry moving.
Let's talk a bit more about you just for a second here. How did you get into franchising? How did you switch from what you were doing to what attracted you, and how did you end up becoming a certified franchise consultant?
Well, I was sitting in a parking lot around 2008 of a plaza. My wife went in with our youngest to a store that had, thousands of colors of fingernail polish, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking at all of these great little niche stores in this plaza. And I'm like, wow, these guys are brilliant. These folks are geniuses. Look at these names. Look at these little businesses. Look at this has got to be a franchise. Holy cow. This is, I got to get in, and then I became interested. About 8 years later, my father turned 90. We had moved my wife's uncle in, who was 86. I was raised to take care of your own, and so I told my board I'm going to turn my avocation, which I had been consulting with nonprofits all over the country since probably 2007. And I thought I would, add the franchises into it and go home and empower the old guys, and, until such a time as, they were no longer. And that's what I did.
Good deal. Now, share with us, if you don't mind, where did the 100-acre consulting name come from?
Oh, in 1986, I bought 100 acres in upstate New York in the middle of nowhere for $30,000.
Oh, my kind of guy. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Built a couple of houses. I spent 35 years. It was like a canvas. I just kept building stone walls and creating gardens. And then when COVID hit, that part of rural New York became extremely sought after by folks, in major metropolitan areas. And we had family, grandkids in Vermont, and I've always been fascinated with the city of Montpelier in Vermont, the smallest capital in America. There's, I think, 6,000 residents, but they got like 24,000 commuters every day. It's the most self-sustaining city in the country. And so we just decided to, move in the middle of winter, in the middle of COVID in New England.
Okay.
Would not recommend it to anybody.
I was going to say, that's not recommended, is what you're saying.
No. If you wanted to come up with something that started off with lack of help, that would be what you would do.
Yep. So what you're saying is, any other time of the year, any other time of the year
Right.
except for when you chose to do it. And
Right.
look,
And in the
hey,
middle of COVID, because, nobody could show up. And at that point, if you drove from one state to the other, you had to sit in a hotel for 2 weeks.
oh yeah, sure.
You remember all
Yeah,
that?
right.
So,
Oh,
yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I worked remote before it was cool to work remote. I've been working remote for 20 years. So I was doing a lot of travel through all of that. And I had been in Georgia in the beginning of March that year. So I
Mhm.
know exactly what you're talking about when I came home and
Yeah.
everything got turned upside down. Now let's talk about the types of folks that you generally work with. Who are the types of folks you generally see utilizing your services that, it makes sense for?
It's a broad range because I do have a large portfolio of franchises, and they run, from $20,000, $30,000 all the way up to, millions. But the majority of my clients are people who are looking to add semi-absentee passive income. They're folks who, they've got a good day job. And they're not ready to leave it yet, but they're looking for something, maybe to transition into later or something for, just to add to their portfolio. I also have a lot of clients who come, one of my first questions to somebody is, you got an MBA in the basement, because a lot of people have MBAs in the basement,
Yep. Yep.
and you'd be surprised how many people go, "Oh my God, how did you know?" She had been down there since last May.
Yep. That's great. That's great. Now,
So,
what is the process when folks do reach out to you, say, "Hey, Dan, I'm interested." What's that process look like that you're taking them through? You explained the first part of it, of what you talk with
right.
them. Take us from there through like a little bit what you and I would know as like the due diligence process. What does that look like, and how involved are you in all of that?
Sure. Well, once I get a pretty good idea of where, I'm involved continuously. I'm in the middle of it. But once I find out what they're looking for, in lifestyle and what they're looking to pay, sort of thing to get them there, then I will go through my franchises and I will suggest, usually up to five, any more than five gets a little confusing, but I'll suggest up to five businesses. I will try to actually put them in five different industries so that they can get a variety of what it is. Once you break past what the franchise company is actually doing and you get into the nitty gritty of like the franchise disclosure document, franchise agreements, that sort of thing, they're really close. There's not a lot of difference. Congress was brilliant when they designed both the franchise, disclosure document and the agreement. You can literally, a client of mine can look at a senior care, look at a pizza place, and look at a dog poop pickup. And you can, item one is going to be exactly the same, across the board. Item two is going to be the same, it's going to be business, but what item two encompasses is exactly the same. So, you can read these things, you can compare apples to apples. And then once we get to, I cut my bones a million years ago, taking like two or three sentences or not even taking, maybe one or two sentences and creating a guitarist that you would come pay $20 for on Friday night to come listen to that you never heard before of in your life. So I try to really write out a good, description of this business, cover up what I think is going to be a lot of the questions, and then I'll send it to them. And then once they've read through this, if it sparks their interest, I'll then have a conversation with them about those businesses that they thought, seemed very interesting of what I sent. Then I will introduce them to the franchise company. Once they begin to talk to the franchise company, I've got a whole list of questions I've developed over the years that, I send my clients, sort of as a primer. It's not like they're going to ask every one of them, although I have had clients do that. But, most of them are just, wow, I didn't think to ask that question.
Sure.
And then we go through the process. I go through it with them. As they move forward in the process, I help them. When they get the FDD, I send them information on the FDD, what they should be reading, what they need to be looking for, the kind of things that they want to understand, links to articles, great articles that have been written about FDDs and how to read them. At some point, a franchise company can't actually tell you what you're going to make, and in the business, because they can say, "Hey, you're going to make $150,000 a year," and then you go home and you sit on the couch for a year and you sue them because you didn't make $150,000 and they told you. You would. It doesn't matter. You didn't open your door and go outside. They told you would. So there's a thing called validation where you get to speak with other franchise owners, and talk to them. Do they do everything they told you? Has it been good for you? Would you buy it again? But I send questions along with those too. I will help coach my clients. I've gotten my clients to stand in front of full-length mirrors, put their hands on their hip and do a Wonder Woman stance and breathe for 2 minutes. Just literally, I want to hear you breathe for 2 minutes. And I listen to them on the phone, breathe for 2 minutes. They come back, oh my God, I feel so much better. It's whatever, it's a big thing. You're going to spend a lot of money. You're going to change your life. This isn't like, okay, I'm going to give up, I'm going to switch to fat-free milk, from whole milk. I'm going to spend a big chunk of money. I'm going to change my life. I'm going to, I'm going to be responsible in a way that I'm not normally being responsible. I always tell my clients, first thing you do, reach around, pat yourself on the back just for the notion of taking that kind of responsibility. You just stepped out of the herd, dude.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yep. So anyway.
Look, I agree 100%. I think that they should do that pat on the back when they even really dig in and start exploring, because most people won't even get off the couch to even start the exploration, right?
Yeah,
and
right.
They make that life-altering decision to move forward and start their own business.
Mm-hmm.
It's obviously, we refer to it as the American dream all the time, but, owning a home and starting a business of our own, right? But it's so life-altering. It's one of the things that I'm very passionate about in franchising as well for the past, 15, 20 years now. I want to ask you, Dan, I am almost guaranteed that you are asked this question. It's got to be on a regular basis, right? It's not a trick question, but it's something we talked about ahead of time here. Does anybody ever ask you, hey, Dan, what's the best franchise?
Of course. Yeah, of course. Actually, but not as much as you would think. Really, because by the time I get through talking to them, they're not thinking what the best franchise is. They're thinking about, whoa, I'm going to Europe.
Sure.
But at this point, it's not so much the individual franchise; it's the industry. I'm going to tell you right off the top: senior care is never going to end. You got 12,000 people a day turning 65.
Sure.
In this country, your average territory for a senior care is 27,000 to 30,000 qualified seniors. Wow. You know how many seniors it takes to make $1 million in revenue in a senior care? About 24.
Oh, geez. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and you got 27,000 in your territory. If you've got 50 full-time clients, you're doing $2 million a year in revenue. I've got 23 senior cares doing the same thing. I mean, nobody's reinventing the activities of daily living wheel. There's some nuances here and there, but they're basically the same thing. I could add 10 more because you got 12,000 people a day, and they're averaging $1.5 to $1.7 million a year per clinic. It's senior care. Any given day of the week, you've got 13.5 million octogenarians, alive and kicking, in this country. It's not changing, hell, I'm getting there.
Really. Yeah, we're not getting any younger, right? So
no. I haven't figured out a franchise for that one yet.
If you do, let me know. We'll sell out the country. But let's switch over a little bit here, just a tad, not too deep, because I know that you need to talk with folks about this. But without getting into too specific of numbers, if somebody were interested in owning a franchise, what type of financial resources should they bring to the table to feel confident that they should be talking with you to find a model?
Right. So, when Congress created the franchise agreement, they're the ones who declared that the franchise fee had to be paid in cash. I think that was Congress's way of making the purchaser get some skin in the game, because, it is the last thing a franchise needs is somebody to just walk away,
Sure.
Or close. So, I tell my clients, if you've got anywhere between $60,000 and $75,000 in cash, you've got a net worth over 300 and 100,000, and you've got a credit score of nowadays probably 690 or better, you can own almost any franchise in the country. Now, whether they'll sell it to you, again, I also tell my clients now, nobody in the past 5 years has bought a franchise. The way the franchise industry is moving, you're awarded a franchise. When I tell them, yeah, you get to call them, you get an interview, you can ask them all these questions, all this stuff, but make no mistake, they are vetting you as much as you are vetting them, because they cannot allow a jugglehead to slip through. That's the last thing they need, is somebody to come in and do damage to their brand.
Yeah, it's a good point there with the mutual due diligence is what I always reference it as. It's folks looking at each other as they go through the process. But I want to point out something, Dan, you said there on the financials real quick, because a lot of folks might be thinking now, holy cow, like, I didn't realize I could own a McDonald's for 75 grand. Well, what we're talking about is what I call the regular franchises, right?
Yeah.
These aren't the Wendy's, McDonald's, and Chick-fil-A type franchise. We're talking about what I mentioned as the everyday franchise, the ones that most folks don't even realize in some cases that are actual franchises, which is 90% of the company, right, that they haven't heard of.
Yeah, that's correct. I think there's 3,800 franchise brands.
Yep. Yeah, we might know, maybe as a consumer, we might know 100 or 150 of those. The ones you're talking about are all of those other ones, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah. The ones that, the ones that are recession proof, the ones
exactly.
that, the ones that people need, the ones that, the folks that come and, take the tree off your house that fell on it.
Right.
The ones, the ones that, those folks, there are, you can't imagine, but just about everything that needs to be done on this planet for one person or another, there's a franchise.
There 100%, because but I think that a lot of folks don't realize that until they talk with you and you can walk them through that, because when we think franchise as consumers, we just naturally think of the big fast food franchise because they've built those big brands, but you've got all these other businesses that are phenomenal businesses out there servicing consumers and other businesses, providing services, all that in so many industries. What did you say? Something like 30 something different industries?
I have 32 alone. Yeah. And that's not even talking subcategories. That's a big bucket number, Right. There's a lot of little puppies underneath that.
Now, as we come up to the end here, Dan, I got a couple more questions for you here. Sure. But if I were an entrepreneur thinking about exploring franchise ownership, what would be the best way for me to reach out to you? And then I'll make sure to collect that info and include it underneath of your interview as well.
Sure. Yeah. Well, you can email me. You'll give them my email address. My webpage. I've got a contact me link on my webpage. On the banner across the top. On my webpage, actually, I've got one that says it's your dream business. You click on that banner. You can go. You fill out a couple of questions, and I'll send you up to 5 businesses that's going to fit the criteria that you put in there. My whole thing is just, let's see if it actually is what you want. And to be honest with you, John, I probably talk, 12 to 18 people a year out of going into franchise ownership, because it is not for everybody. A really solid entrepreneur is going to have, a little bit of trouble staying within,
Sure.
The parameters of
the
what,
franchise systems,
what's going on. Right. But if you're somebody, it's like my grandmother used to say, you don't have to build a better mousetrap to have the world beat a path to your door. Just sell one. That's it. The other thing she used to say is you don't have to be a genius for, your whole life, just 30 seconds, and most of these franchise companies, they took their 30 seconds and they ran with them.
Yep.
And now they've got brilliant models that are, extremely well put together. The training, the support on these things are, incredible. It's very difficult not to be successful with a franchise in 2023. This isn't Gallagher's, Sledge-O-Matic.
No, it's not. Well, there might be some folks.
Right.
Yeah,
Industries.
I was going to say, now you're dating yourself just a little bit, Dan.
Oh,
I know who Gallagher is, but
I can go back much further than that. I look good for my age.
No, I love it. I love it. My wife and I actually saw him here just a couple of years ago, believe it or not. But
oh, good for you.
Yeah. Well, look, as we come up to the end here, I want to ask you to take the next 30 seconds to a minute here. Just give us a recap, kind of soup to nuts, top to bottom. What are the important things? What do you want to emphasize that would encourage folks to reach out to you?
Okay. Well, first of all, the franchise industry is just nonstop. It's the fourth largest industry in the country, and probably in the next 5 years, it might be number 2 right behind tourism. It's just exploding. There's oversight from Congress that is just incredible. I know when I tell you numbers from a franchise company that those numbers are real because they've been audited. They've been they're in the FDD. Those things don't exist unless everything is proven. The other thing is that the franchise industry is not, you can do really well. You can spend $80,000, $90,000 and be making $250,000 a year. You really can. You can spend $300,000 and be sitting on passive income of $750,000 a year in 3 to 4 years. It's very possible. This industry, the franchise industry, is amazing. There are businesses that you can own that are going to be run by, you're never gonna work in it. I tell people, oh yeah, you're thinking of buying a, residential cleaning. That's great. I'm going to tell you right now, the only time you're going to pick up a mop is if you spill milk in your kitchen. It's just not happening out there in the real world. You're not doing the $25 an hour job. You're doing the $275 an hour job. So don't even think about it. Don't think, the industry is just so amazing. I'm really tickled. And, if I put somebody in business, I just help that family, so I'm still changing community. And if that business is a brick and mortar and they've got employee, more's the better,
sure.
And if it's a brick and mortar, you got a brand new shiny penny on Main Street. Who doesn't like that? It just makes everybody feel good about where they live. I spent a lot of time going around New York State talking to municipalities about, how to change second floor Main Street, because first floor is great. Second floor, there's nothing,
sure.
Or what are you going to do with that gorgeous 1890, 500 seat sanctuary church that's been sitting empty for 5 years?
Mm-hmm.
Turn it into something that's going to be a community based. It's the same. I'm doing the same thing now. I'm just not working big. I'm working small, one family at a time. And I just love it.
Well, I love your passion, Dan. And folks, Dan Hayes, the CEO and founder of 100 Acre Consulting.
100 Acre, not 100. It was from 100 Acre. 100 Acre. That's
100 Acre. I got you. 100 Acre Consulting. Certified franchise consultant. Definitely can hear the passion, folks. So make sure to reach out to Dan. We'll include the information here. John Henning here with the Franchise Radio Show. Dan, thank you so much, buddy.
Thank you, John. This was a lot of fun.